My name is Sarah, and I can't escape the mirror in my basement. When I bought the old house, I thought I was lucky. A beautiful Victorian home for an absurdly low price, too good to be true. The only downside, a locked room in the basement. The realtor dismissed it, saying the previous owner had stored old furniture there and lost the key. I should have left it alone. For weeks, I tried to ignore it, but every time I went downstairs, I felt it. A presence, like something was just beyond that door, waiting. One night, curiosity won. I pried the door open with a crowbar, my breath hitching as the wood splintered apart. Inside was nothing but a single, full-length mirror. Its frame was ancient, covered in symbols I didn't recognize. The glass was dark, warped, like looking into water instead of a reflection. The second I stepped inside, the air turned heavy as if the room had been sealed for a reason. That's when I saw it. My reflection blinked a second too late. I froze, my pulse hammering. Slowly, I lifted my hand. My reflection followed. But something felt off. The movements were delayed, unnatural. And then, it smiled. I didn't. I stumbled backward, slamming the door shut. But the moment I turned to run, I heard it knocking from inside the mirror. I barely slept that night. When I woke up, the basement door was ajar. The mirror had been moved. It now faced the doorway, as if someone or something wanted me to look. I threw a sheet over it, locked the basement door, but the knocking hasn't stopped. It's louder now, closer, and tonight, when I checked my bedroom mirror, my reflection was still smiling. My name is Ben, and I know what I saw in my grandparents' basement. They lived in a quiet, old house on the edge of town. Every summer, my parents sent me there for a few weeks. It was boring, no internet, no friends nearby, just endless bookshelves, and the eerie silence of a home that felt too big for two people. But the worst part was the basement. I was never allowed to go down there. Old wiring, my grandfather always said. Rotten steps, my grandmother would add, but I never believed them. I'd seen my grandfather disappear down there plenty of times, always locking the door behind him. One night, curiosity won. I waited until they were asleep, crept down the creaky stairs, and pressed my ear against the basement door. Silence. But when I turned the knob, it wasn't locked. The air hit me first thick, damp, and cold. I clicked on my flashlight, revealing rows of dusty shelves and rusted tools. But at the very back, something was covered with a sheet. I don't know why, but I felt sick just looking at it. My hands were shaking as I reached for the fabric and yanked it away. Underneath was a mirror, a massive antique thing, its frame covered in strange symbols I didn't recognize. The glass was dark, murky, like it hadn't reflected anything in years. I lifted my flashlight, trying to see myself in it. I wish I hadn't, because when my reflection finally appeared, it didn't move with me. My chest tightened. I stepped back. The other me didn't. It just stood there, staring, its eyes slightly too wide, its grin just a little too sharp. Then, it stepped forward. I ran. I nearly tripped, scrambling up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind me. My grandparents found me the next morning, shaking, refusing to explain why I had locked myself in my room all night. They never asked, but I know they knew. The next day, the basement door was chained shut. My grandfather told me I was never to go near it again. That was 10 years ago. I haven't been back since. But last night, I got a call. My grandparents have passed, and they left me the house. My name is Daniel, and I should have never opened that door. We had just moved into the house, an old Victorian fixer-upper on the outskirts of town. My wife, Claire, loved its charm, the antique fixtures, the creaky wooden floors. But what intrigued me most was the basement, a dark, damp space with an old stone foundation. The first time I explored it, I noticed something strange. A second door, set deep into the wall, covered in layers of chipped paint. It had no handle, no keyhole, just a door, forgotten by time. Don't mess with it, Claire warned. Some things should stay shut, but curiosity is dangerous. That night, after Claire had gone to bed, I went back down with a crowbar. The second I touched the wood, a shiver ran through me, like the house itself was warning me. I hesitated, then forced the crowbar between the door and its frame. With a loud crack, the door popped open. A wave of stale air hit me, thick with the scent of earth and rot. Beyond the door was a narrow tunnel, stretching into pitch blackness. I aimed my flashlight down the passage, but the beam barely cut through the darkness. The walls were lined with deep, erratic scratches as if something had been trying to get out. Then, from deep within the tunnel, I heard it. A single knock that I should have closed the door. I should have run upstairs and never looked back. But I didn't. I stepped forward. The dirt beneath my feet felt soft, almost too soft, like something had been disturbed. The deeper I went, the colder the air became. Then, at the very end of the passage, I saw it a chair, old, wooden, sitting alone, in the darkness. The floor around it was covered in deep, jagged footprints, circling it over and over again. And above it, carved into the dirt ceiling, were words scratched in frantic, uneven letters. Do not turn around. The second I read it, I heard breathing behind me. I ran. I don't remember getting back to the house, but I must have slammed the basement door shut behind me because, when I woke up in my bed, my hands were covered in dirt. Claire says I was sleepwalking, that I dreamed the whole thing. But every night since then, I've heard the knocks, louder, closer, and last night, I woke up to find the basement door wide open. I think something got out. My name is Mark, and I should have never opened that door. It was locked for a reason. I moved into the house last month. A cheap deal, too good to pass up. A big place with a large basement, perfect for storage, or so I thought. But there was something strange about it. The basement was divided into two sections, one wide and empty, and the other separated by an old, locked door. The landlord warned me not to mess with it. It's been sealed for decades, he said. Best to leave it that way. I should have listened. Curiosity got the best of me. I tried ignoring it at first, but every time I went down there, I felt it. A pressure in the air, like the room beyond was watching. One night, I found an old iron key wedged behind the furnace. My heart pounded as I fit it into the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a small, windowless room. Dust coated the floor, disturbed only by a single object in the center, an old wooden chest. It was latched shut, the wood darkened with age, almost pulsating beneath my fingertips. Then I heard it, a faint scratching from inside the chest. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. Maybe it was just a rat. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But then, the scratching turned into tapping, slow, rhythmic, like knuckles knocking against wood. I ran upstairs, slamming the door behind me. That night, I barely slept. But at some point, exhaustion won. When I woke up, something was different. The basement door was open. I know I locked it. I know I did. But now, it was ajar, a sliver of darkness bleeding into the hallway. My stomach twisted. Slowly, I crept downstairs, my heart pounding in my ears. The chest was open, and it was empty. I don't remember running back upstairs. I don't remember locking my bedroom door. But I remember the whispers. Soft at first, then growing louder. A voice calling my name, and then the tapping. Not from the basement this time, from inside my closet. I haven't opened the door since, but every night, the tapping grows closer. The whispers get clearer, and now, I think whatever was in that chest is in my room. My name is Chris, and I can't stay in this house any longer. Not after what we heard in the basement. It started as a joke. My roommates and I, Josh, Emily, and Nate, rented an old house for cheap. The landlord barely spoke about the basement, just muttered something about strange acoustics. We didn't think much of it, until the whispers started at first. They were faint, barely audible, a hushed murmur just below the surface of our hearing. We thought it was the pipes, or maybe the wind sneaking through cracks in the foundation. But as the days passed, the whispers grew clearer. They said our names. Josh was the first to notice. He was up late studying when he heard his name drifting up from the basement vent. He thought it was one of us messing with him, but when he checked, we were all asleep. The next night, it was Emily. She woke up screaming, saying someone had been whispering to her from inside her closet. But when we checked, the only vent in her room led directly to the basement. That's when we decided to investigate. The basement was unfinished, just a cold concrete space with a few rusted shelves. We stood in a circle, listening, waiting. At first, there was nothing. Then, Nate whispered, "If someone is here, say something." Silence. Then, a voice whispered back, "We hear you." We ran, but the whispers didn't stop. They followed us through the house, seeping through the vents, crawling into our ears. I could hear them even when I covered my head with a pillow, always whispering, always listening. Last night, we tried to leave, but the basement door was open, and at the bottom of the stairs, something was standing there. I didn't see its face. I didn't need to. The whispers turned into laughter. We packed whatever we could carry and left before dawn. We didn't look back, but I can still hear them, and I don't think they're done with us.